Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
All right, so today I'm going to be talking about the infamous why can't I put my heels down? This is something that I feel like a lot of equestrians struggle with, especially in the English disciplines or amateurs who are riding the horsemanship. Any sort of equitation style class is going to require that the rider be able to sink down into their heels and be able to still use their legs and their body effectively. And that's something that a lot of riders struggle with. So today I kind of want to break down what it means biomechanically for the body to be able to lengthen the heel down and how you can achieve that through exercise. So that way it's easier when you go to ride. So, first, I want to talk about a muscle imbalance. So, a muscle imbalance is when you have a body part that's surrounded by, let's say, two different muscles, and one muscle is tighter than the other. Okay, so let's take the lower leg, for example. From your knee down to your ankle, there's a muscle in the front of your shin, and then there's some muscles in the back of your calf. So, if you're having trouble putting your heels down, you potentially have a muscle imbalance where the calf is tighter than the front of the shin. And you can imagine how, if the back of the calf is really tight, that would cause a muscle imbalance between the knee and the ankle, right? Because the back of the calf is tight. So, it's not going to allow you to lengthen the space between your knee and your ankle. If you have tight calves, which is very common, especially for women who are wearing high heels all day long, and I actually see it quite often in a lot of my riders as well. When you're riding and you're driving with your feet, especially my pleasure horsemanship type riders where they're using their feet to drive their horse's belly up to their seat, it's really common to get tight there. Yet we ask for our positioning to be able to stretch the heels down. So, what can we do about it? The first thing you want to do is what's called corrective exercise. So, corrective exercise is correcting the muscle imbalance. If you have tight calves, you need to focus on lengthening the back of the calf and strengthening the front of the shin. The best ways to lengthen the back of the calf is through foam rolling and static stretching. So, foam rolling is when you take a large foam roller that's basically like a foam cylinder, and it's about 4 inches wide and about 12 to 18 inches long. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but that's a pretty standard size. They're not expensive. They're like 15, $20 on Amazon or at your local Target. Basically, it's kind of like a self massage. You put your tight muscle against the foam roller, you put pressure against the foam roller, and the pressure is going to help relieve tension in the muscle spindles of your muscle. So, how often do you go get a massage and they're like, wow, you have this big knot in your muscle? Well, those are bound up muscle spindles. So, foam rolling can be a great tool for an inexpensive way to release those muscle spindles because for a lot of people, it's not feasible to go get a massage every week, right? So, foam rolling is a great tool that's inexpensive, easy to do at home, and it doesn't take much time. So, to foam roll your calves, you'd start with the foam roller down on the ground, and then you sit down on the ground with your butt on the floor, and then you just put the back of your calves against the foam roller. Okay, so you're sitting down on the ground on your butt with your feet straight out in front of you, and the foam roller is on the ground underneath your calves. Okay, so where a lot of people go wrong with foam rolling is they move back and forth on the foam roller. It's more effective to roll around for a second or two to kind of find a tight spot. And then once you find that tight spot, just stay there. You don't need to keep moving back and forth. Okay. So you find the tight spot, you stay there for 30 ish seconds, maybe a little bit longer if the muscle is really tight. And then you move to a new tight spot. And you keep doing that where you roll around, find a tight spot, stay there for 30 ish seconds, and then move to the new tight spot. And you keep doing that until you feel like you've gotten a release out of the muscle. So you might go over the same spot multiple times. A lot of people find that they're tighter up more towards the knee as opposed to down by the ankle, but just kind of figure out where you're tightest and really focus on putting a lot of pressure against the foam roller. If you're just sitting on the ground and you feel like you have plenty of pressure, not even doing anything else, like that's enough for you, then you have very, very tight calves. And I would recommend doing this very often. If you feel like you need more pressure, one way is to just put your hands down on the ground and then lift your butt off the ground. So your calves are still on the foam roller, but your hands are on the ground and your butt is in the air. Okay. It doesn't need to be very high. The problem with this position is it can put a lot of pressure on your wrists, especially if you're doing it for a couple of minutes. So the other option is to stay with your butt on the ground and just bend forward and touch your toes. And that's also going to help you get a static stretch out of the back of the calf and the hamstring. And that static stretch is also going to help relieve the tension that you have in that muscle. So, for how often you should be foam rolling, it kind of depends on how tight your muscles are. If you feel like when you go to exercise or go about your daily life and you feel like your calf muscles are so tight that they're inhibiting either your exercise or your daily life, then you should probably be doing it every day before you start your day. So, you get up and you immediately go on your foam roller for 5 or 10 minutes and then you go about your day. You don't want to be foam rolling for more than like 10 or 15 minutes. It's not an activity that is supposed to be taking a long time. So get up in the morning, go to your foam rolling, go about your day. I promise it will feel so much better. And not just like if you have tight calves, if you have any muscle that's really bothering you throughout the day, like it's just tight, you feel like you can't move, try foam rolling in the morning. I guarantee you will see a difference. It'd be great if you foam rolled 3 to 5 times a week, if not every day. The more often that you do it, the more it's gonna benefit you. Like I said, it kinda just depends on how tight your muscle is. If your calves don't feel like they're that tight, you can get away with probably doing it twice a week, but 3 to 5 times a week is gonna be great for really seeing a change in the muscle. Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, and my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopindowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride. So you do the foam rolling and then you follow that up with static stretching. So static stretching is taking a muscle into a lengthened position, holding it for 30 to 60 seconds and then moving on. So for the calves, there's a bunch of different calf stretches. You can honestly just do a quick Google search, look up static calf stretch on Google if you need that visual. But some of my favorites, if you have really tight calves, then forward fold is probably going to be your best bet. So you stretch your arms up over your head, reach up into a calf raise, and then bend over and touch your toes. And you want to think about keeping your heels pressed down into the ground. Do not let them lift up. Do not let all your body weight sit into your toes. Keep your weight back. And that's really going to help you stretch out the back of that leg. So holding that for 30 to 60 seconds, then standing back up. And you probably need to do like 2 or 3 different static stretches. If your calves are really tight, you don't want to just do one. So another great stretch is downward dog. Again, if you have really tight calves, then forward fold, downward dog are going to be your best friend because other stretches are probably going to be too intense for you in the beginning. Another great stretch is called a wall calf stretch. So you stand right in front of a wall and you put your right toe up on the wall. Okay, so you keep your right heel down on the ground, but your right toe is up on the wall. And then you push your body forward as close to the wall as you can get it. And then you just stay there. Stay there for 30 to 60 seconds, and then you would switch sides. If you're really tight, do it twice. You don't need to just do it once. Another great stretch is just a standing calf stretch. So you're just standing up, and it's very similar to the wall stretch, but just without the wall. So you're standing up tall, you lift your right toe off the ground, but you keep your right heel on the ground. You reach your arms up over your head, and then you bend over and you touch your right toe, and you just stay right there. Think about pushing that right heel down into the ground and just staying there. Again, do it on both sides. If it's super tight, do it twice. So if you static stretched and foam rolled a tight muscle that you had every day before you started your day, I guarantee that you would see a big difference in your ability to do your daily tasks if that muscle is really bothering you. So I definitely recommend that. So that's the first piece. Okay. The next piece that you have to think about is strengthening the front of the shin. So, a couple great ways to do that are just some standing toe raises. So, you're just standing flat on the ground. You can do a horsemanship position with your arms. Then you lift your toes up off the ground and then back down. You lift your toes up off the ground and then back down. Okay. So, that's a great way to strengthen the front of the shin. You can also do some toe points on your back. So you're laying on your back and you're gonna stretch your right leg straight up in the air and you're gonna put your hands behind your right knee. You're gonna point your right toes up to the ceiling and then back to your face. Point your toes up to the ceiling and then back to the face. Okay, that's also gonna be great for improving the mobility that you have in your ankle. A lot of times when we have a muscle imbalance, the joint tends to lose a lot of mobility because there's unevenness around the joint. So it's typically pulled in one way, and the joint typically doesn't get to go through a full range of motion very often. So it's really common for people with tight calves to also have limited ankle mobility. Those toe points are also going to be a valuable piece in relieving that muscle imbalance and getting you to stretch your heels down.
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pin anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and am here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
So the toe points are one of my favorite ankle mobility exercises. And then my other one are ankle circles. So you're in the same position, laying on your back, right leg up in the air. And then you just draw circles with your right ankle. So you're just kind of pushing your ankle around a circle, focusing on getting a full range of motion. You want to try not to shortcut your circle. So you're going pretty slow. These are not supposed to be done fast. Same with the toe points. And doing about 10 of each is going to be great. And then after that, you want to start integrating normal movements back into your exercise routine. So, what I mean by that is if your calves are really tight, first, you really just need to focus on lengthening that muscle back out. Okay. And then once that muscle is lengthened back out, then you need to focus on the mobility a little bit more. Okay. Those ankle circles and toe points. And then after that, you got to start reintroducing normal movements back into your exercise routine to ask that muscle in that area to start getting strong again. When you have a muscle imbalance, you also tend to get pretty weak in that area. After you've gained that flexibility and that mobility, start doing some squats, start doing some lunges, things like that to help strengthen that ankle and knee complex and strengthen that calf. So, from a biomechanics standpoint, that's what you need to be doing in order to get your heels to stretch down. Okay. So when you're sitting in the saddle and you're sitting up really tall and you're thinking about pushing your heels down and you just feel like you can't physically do it, like the back of your calf is just limiting you, then you need to go through all these things. Okay. 3 to 5 times a week, it's going to be instrumental for helping you get that piece down. Okay. Your trainer can only yell at you so many times to put your heels down. And then it might not just be about your calves. So your body has a front side and a back side. Okay. The front side is called your anterior chain, and the back side is called your posterior chain. If you're tight anywhere in the posterior chain, so your back, your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves, if you're tight anywhere along that chain, the rest of that chain is also going to be tight. Okay, so the body is all connected. If your back is tight and you're leaning forward and you're holding a lot of tension around your hips because your back muscles are so tight, you're not going to be able to lengthen your heels down. If you're tight in the hamstrings and you're really clamping down onto your horse with your hamstrings, you're not going to be able to stretch your calves down. So it might not just be about the calves, but if you can't stretch your heels down, I would bet that you have some sort of a tightness somewhere in your posterior chain. The other component that could be causing that, like let's say that you have great mobility, great flexibility, you're not tight anywhere in the posterior chain, and you're still struggling getting those heels down, you could have some instability in your hips and in your core muscles. So, like for me, I've talked about a couple times how I have a back injury, and that sometimes causes me to be unstable through my lower back and my hips, especially on my left side. So, I know that for me, when I'm struggling to put my heels down, it's because I'm unbalanced and I'm using my feet to help stabilize my back. So, I'll end up putting a lot of tension in my feet to help keep me stable through my leg and keep me stable through my seat. It's really hard to put your heels down when you're using your feet to balance. So, working on your core stability and your core strength is also going to be instrumental for helping you put those heels down. If you feel like you have the mobility that you should have, then you probably have an instability somewhere. Like, if you can't put your heels down and you have the mobility for it and you know that it's not that, you're probably compensating with your feet for something, right? It might not even be you, it could be your horse, right? Like, let's say that your horse is super lazy, right? And doesn't wanna get off your leg. You're probably gonna be driving with your spur quite a bit more, and it's a lot harder to drive with your spur when your heel is down, right? Like, when you watch the trainers go around in the pleasure pen, their heels are not down. Their toes are down and their heels are up because they're driving their horse up to their seat with their spurs. So that can be challenging if you have a horse that requires that, but that's between you, your trainer, and your horse to figure out that piece. But from a biomechanics standpoint, if you have mobility through your posterior chain and if you don't have any instabilities in your hips, I think that those are the 2 main components that are gonna be able to keep you from keeping your heels down.
Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends.
So if you work on those pieces in the gym, I can almost guarantee that you're gonna see a big difference in stretching your heels down. So, some things that you can do when you get to the barn and when you're at your lesson is when you get on your horse, just think about doing a couple heel stretches. Honestly, you can also do it before you even get on. You can do a couple of those static stretches that I talked about to help lengthen that calf down. And especially if you've been at the barn for a while and you've been walking around in your tight boots and on the concrete, your calves are probably going to get tight, especially if you ran around and did some showmanship before you hopped on or you lunged. Lengthening those calf muscles is going to be a great idea before you hop on. And then focus on some ankle mobility. Okay. Do some ankle circles, do some toe points. And then after that, do a couple core activation exercise, do some dead bugs, do some arm raises, do some leg raises. In episode 8, Strategies to Get the Most Out of Your Ride Fitness Edition, I gave a bunch of different exercises that you can do on your horse to increase the mobility in your ankles, increase your core stability once you get on. So if you feel like you're struggling with those pieces, then I would go back to that episode and I would re listen to it. I know that was a lot of information, so if you guys have any questions or need any clarifications or need any help with any of that, please send me a message. My name's Ellie. You can find my page, Lopin' Down the Rail Fitness, in the comments of this episode. Send me a message. I'm happy to help you guys out. And thank you guys for listening today.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up to date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.